Aleph. HaKadosh, Boker Tov, Masechet Ketubot Daf Amud Aleph 51a1. We are right now by the two dots where it says Hahu Yatom v'Yatoma. We're talking about a Yatom and Yatoma, that they were brother and sister. Remember, they were talking about an orphan and orphaness. And there was an apotropous that was in charge of the properties. Remember, that's talking about somebody which is like a guarantor, somebody that's in charge. I don't know the best word for it, but somebody that's in charge. What is it?
Guardians.
Okay, a guardian. Yeah, we're talking about one of these guardians that they're in charge of their properties. That they came in front of Rava. Okay, now why did they come in front of Rava? Because the Yitoma was asking that she should get supported from the property of the father. Remember that usually when a person passes away, the girls do not inherit. It is only the boys that inherit. However, though, you have to give parnasa to the girls. So here, Amalu Rava, so Rava comes and he tells them, Ha'alu layatom bishvila yitoma. What does that mean? Give the yatom, right? Which is in order, that means you have to give him a little bit more in order to give to the yitoma, which means you had somebody that he was going to be a guarantor. And nowadays, by the way, they also do the same thing. They give it to, let's say, to an attorney, or they give it to somebody. And what happens is that, for example, right, the man has a lot of money. So he's going to put in a trust. And then he has an attorney or somebody that every single month he comes and he gives them a stipend. He comes and he gives them, this is an allowance. Every week or every month, you guys get, let's say, $1,000. Here it is. Perfect. Chazak Baruch. All of a sudden, he comes and he says, yeah, but you have the Yitoma. So Rava comes and he tells the apotropos, what you're supposed to do is you have to give the Yatom extra food in order that he should be able to give it to the Yitoma, in order that she should also be able to be supported as well. So Amli le Rabbanan le Rava. So this is the Shita of Rava. Remember, Rava is saying this. Okay? So Rabbanan le Rava. So the Rabbanan le Chachamim come and they tell to Rava. He says, 1 second. Right? You yourself, you taught, right, that you cannot collect from the karkaot and not, right, only from the karkaot and not from the taltalim, which means you can only collect from the ground, from karka, but not from, right, movable objects. Remember, the taltalim are movable objects which are mitaltel, which go from one place to another. So he comes and he says, ben le mezoneh, ben le ketubah, ben le parnasa. Doesn't matter whether we're talking about the mezonot or the benot yitomot. Here we're talking about the parnasa of the girls, which are the yitomot, or for the yikara, the ketubah, or for the parnasa. The parnasa here is for the nedunya, the dowry, the dote, which goes to the girls when they get married. So therefore, the question is, why are you now coming and telling the potropos that they have to give to the girls from the metaltalin? You yourself, you said you could only take it from karka, not from metaltalin, which means you could only take it from a ground, from a piece of property. You cannot come, which is an asset of a property, not from cars or anything else, which is a movable object. So Amarlehu, so Rabba comes and he answers to Chachamim, Ilu ratza shivcha leshamesho milo yavinale. He says, 1 second. What happens now if the boy comes and the boy says, listen, he's a young boy, he's a yatom. He needs a shivcha in order to come to do the laundry, to make the food, obviously without bishul goy and everything I'm saying, but basically he needs somebody to serve him. He says, what, you wouldn't have given it to him? For sure you wouldn't have given it to him. So kol sheken hacha. So here all the more so. Tikatarte. So you have to give her for 2 reasons. Number 1, because it's a sister. And number 2, because the sister usually serves the brother. What does that mean? Who does the laundry? It's the girls in the house. Who's going to iron? It's the girls in the house. Who's going to cook? It's the girls in the house. So because of all these things, so that's why the same thing. So says the Gemara. So now it makes sense, no? So basically, just like the boy, if he would have asked for a shivcha to be mishameshet oto, right, a maidservant in order to come and serve him, you would have given it to him. So to here, all the more so, because here it's a sister, plus she comes and she serves a brother. So Tanur Rabbanan, we learned in the Braita, right? We learned in the Braita whether we're talking about a property that has, right, achrayut or not. Remember, achrayut means it has a guarantee, which means that if there's going to be a lien or there's going to be something against it, so therefore, motzi'in lemazon ve'leisha ve'labanot. It comes over here and it says you're going to take it out from the yorshim for the mazon of the isha and for the banot. Divrei Rebbe. So you see from here that according to shitat Rebbe, even nechasim she'en lem achrayut, which are metaltalim, right? Which means like this: a piece of land you could have a guarantee. Nowadays, they even have insurances on that, on the lien, on the title insurance and all these things that that you make sure that everything is going to be that there's no lien on the property. However, though, can you do that with the phone? Right, with a mouse. Right? I have this little tiny mouse that you use for the computer. You could put a lien on this. Now, how are you going to find out? How are you going to find out that I went and I got money from him because of this, and then I got money from him because of it? It's very difficult. It's metalton, right? A car, even nowadays, a car, yes, it's got a title, it's got this. It's much more, it became much more like a karka. It became much more like a piece of property. However, though, movable objects, it's very difficult to do that. So he comes and he says, but here Shitat Rabbi is a motzi'in lemazon ha'isha v'labanot. These are the Rabbi. The Shimon Elazar says the chasim shesh lem achriyut motzi'in lebanot. Right? What does that mean? He comes and he says, if it's karka, which is nechasim shesh lem achriyut, that means it has a guarantee. So then yes, they could collect it for the banot, right? For whether it's going to be the parnasa, for the nedunya, for whatever it is, you're allowed to do it mina banim from the boys, right? The gamken motzi'in lebanot. Right, which means you're going to take it away from the smaller girls from the bigger girls, which means somebody that dies without any children. So now there's only daughters, right? Just like Tzlov, yeah. So the daughters are the ones that are going to come, and they're going. So what happens now? If the older girls are going to come and they're going to take the properties. So the younger girls, because of the younger girls, we could take it out from the older girls as well. Which means the older girls, they're older. They're already 16, 17, 20, 15. So they came and they started grabbing the properties. Now the 6-year-old, she has nothing, right? She's got nothing left. So what happens? We're going to take away from the banot ktanot, from the means banot ktanot are able to come and take away from the banot gdolot, from the older girls as well. Labanim in abanim, the same halacha would apply for boys to boys, right? Let's say, for example, do you have all the boys? And you've got older boys and younger boys. So therefore, the younger boys could come and take it away from the older boys if they went and they took, right, more, right, when that they were supposed to, right? They take it away and they come and they divide it evenly the way that it's supposed to be divided, right? So he says, and also labanim in abanot, also the boys, you could take it away from the girls, the nechasim rubim, if there's a lot of properties, right? Why? Because if there's going to be nechasim rubim, so therefore the boys do inherit and the girls still get the parnasa, okay? So we learn from here, though, that if the banot agdolot come and they took for their parnasa, they take it away from them and they give it in the hands of the boys, right? Why? Because it's nechasim rubim. But not if it's going to be a very small amount of properties. Because if there's only going to be a very small amount of properties, so therefore that is going to be used for the parnasa, right? Because we're not going to come and start sending the girls for asking for tzedakah. It's actually more problematic. So therefore we send the boys to ask for parnasa, and the boys get the parnasa from tzedakah, but the girls will take from the inheritance because there was such a small amount of property. So therefore that's what they're going to be coming and they're going to be taking. Okay. Now says the Gemara, now what about? So you see from here that this is all talking about karkaot. Now we're going to metaltalin. Remember, metaltalin are the movable objects. So he says, what about nechasim shel achrayut? Because remember, according to Shitat Rabbi, he didn't make any distinction between yesh lem achrayut or en lem achrayut. It's all the same halacha. Motzi'in lamezon ha'isha v'labanot. That's it. That means there's no distinction. But according to the Shimon Elazar, there is. Until now, we were talking about nechasim she yesh lem achrayut, which is basically karka. What about now nechasim she en lem achrayut? So says the Gemara, shemotzi'in labanim min abanim. So therefore, you do take out from the banim ktanim, from the banim gdolim, which means that if the banim gdolim, the older boys come and they took properties, right? They took, machines, this, that, anything which is movable object. So therefore, you do take it away from them in order to give to the other boys, the smaller boys, or banot mina banot, or the small girls are able to take away from the big girls, right? When they did this, banim mina banot, and also from the banim to the banot also as well. Avalo labanot mina banim, but not from the banot to the banim. Why? So you see from here that if it's going to be metaltalin, you cannot take away for the nedunya, which is a dowry, right, or for the mizonot. So you see from here so therefore you see from here that this is the exact concept that we spoke about beforehand. That if the banot are going to be nizon metaltalin or also from the karkaot, it's a machlok between Rabbi Shimon Elazar and Rabbi. So it comes out it's a machloket. So answers the Gemara. Now usually we have a general rule. When you have a machloket between Rabbi and his friend, we always pass like Rabbi. Rabbi is the Yudan Nasi, we always pass like Rabbi. So he says, Hacha, but here, halacha is like Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Here you have a machloket between Rabbi and one other person, right? Halacha ke Rabbi mechavero velo mechaverav. Remember that, not pro. However, though here, it's only one person. It's Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. So Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, Rabbi, halacha ke Rabbi. He says, no, in this case, it's an exception to the rule. Why? The Amar Rava, because Rava says, Hilchata halacha is mimekarkai velo metaltele, right? And what? that we're only going to take out from karkaot and not from metaltalim. Ben leketubah, ben lemazoneh, ben leparnasah. Whether it's a ketubah, ben lemazonot, or ben lemazonah. So it comes out that since we have Rava, that usually we pass like Rava because it's a batra. So since Rava came in and said this is halacha, we paskin not like Rabbi, we paskin like Bishum and Lazar, which means that there's a difference between yesh lahem achrayut, or meaning there's a difference between properties and movable objects. Property is property. That, yes, you could take out for the mezonot, for the parnasah, for the ketubah, for all these things. But from the metaltalin, no. Okay? We're continuing on the Mishnah, Nunal Famud Aleph. Says the Mishnah, Lo katav la ketubah. Right? Here we're talking about that what happens if a husband came and he did not write to his wife a ketubah. He never wrote her a ketubah. Yeah? And then afterwards he divorced her or she became widowed. So the halacha is like this, right? Betula gova matayim. So the betula is always going to collect 200 zuz, right? Why? She was a virgin, so she gets 200 zuz. Almana, right? Al shemana. You remember we learned this already before. So almana is al shemana, which means that she only gets 100 zuz. So she's half price. Okay? Mipnei shehu t'nai betin, right? Because it's a t'nai betin. What does that mean exactly? That means even though he didn't actually come and obligate himself to a ketubah whatsoever, it's a t'nai betin. The betin came and they obligated to give a ketubah. So that means even though he could say, listen, but I didn't give her a ketubah, right? Imagine a guy comes, he says, what are you talking about? I didn't write any ketubah. I didn't give her a ketubah. No, t'nai betin, you have to give her a ketubah. So no matter what happens, she's going to get money when she leaves. Whether she left because she got divorced or she left because she was widowed, whichever one that it is, right? But she always gets something. So now it's katav la sadeh shaveh maneh tacha 200 zuz. What happens now if he pull the fast one? He comes and he says, okay, fine, he's going to give her the 200 zuz, but he gave her a field which is only shaveh 100 zuz, a maneh, instead of 200 zuz, right? Or lo katabla, he didn't write down kol nechasim dit li achrein leketubot daf, which means on our ketubot it's written that everything that a person has is subjugated, has a lien towards the ketubah. Here he didn't write this. He did not write the words kol nechasim dit, all the nechasim that I have, all the properties that he has are going to be like an arev, like achraim, are going to be like a guarantor. Yes, it is written. Right, the Edot Mizrach actually written that even ala ktivash ala glima shel galai, meaning that mamash, like even on the jacket which is on his back. That's what the Edot Mizrach write. We don't write that, right? The Moroccans, but we have a different nusach. But even in our nusach, it's also written that all the achrayut nechasim, that means basically any property that you have, you cannot come and say no, but you know what? I was going to give her this 200 zuz, but now I don't have any cash. No. You got all the properties that you have are subjugated to her ketubah.
Before the ketubah, during the ketubah, after the ketubah.
It says here like this: Katabla sadeh shaveh maneh tacha 200 zuz. So he wrote to her a field which was only worth 100 zuz instead of 200 zuz. Velo katav, and he didn't write to her that all the properties are going to be guaranteed for that. Chayav, he's still obligated to give her the 200 zuz. Why? Because it's t'nai betin, which means that a person cannot come and just say, you know what, I don't feel like it. I apologize. It has nothing to do with you. It's a condition of bedin. The bedin obligate a man to come and to give to his wife, right? All these things. Now, by the way, I once heard from a friend of mine, very good friend, that he's very smart. That he heard from a rabbi that he said, you see from here that people come and they say that, women's rights only, existed in the 1900s. You see from here that more than 2,000 years ago, there was already t'nai bedin for women's rights, that they get the rights, right? Which is something incredible, right? So I think it's actually very beautiful. Another thing else I heard.
Only about ketubot and stuff. How much other things?
No, but in the ketubah you have everything. In the ketubah you have everything. If she gets captured, you have to come and you have to give a ransom. You can't just say, better. Okay, he took away the problem. No. You have to come, pay up $1 million, $1 million. You have to pay it up, right? She dies. You can just say, listen, it's a burial here. A burial plot is 10,000 in Israel. Let her. He has to bury her. She gets sick. Cure her. All these things. Yeah, divorce. Give her money. The children he has to get. You know how many things is it? A person comes and says, you know what, he wants to refrain from living with her, right? Marital relations. Written in the ketubah. Everything's written there. You have 10 things, 10 obligations which are written. 3 mina Torah, 7 mina Rabbanan, right? And the main ones are written in the Torah, in the ketubah, and the other ones are written in all the t'nai bedin or all the other things.
What are her obligations?
Go. The Gemara now as follows, right? So we just finished now we're still in the middle of the Mishnah, So the first part of the Mishnah was very simple. Tanai Bedin. Okay, next part. Lo katabla. What happens if he did not write in the ketubah in tishtabai afarkinach? Right? That if you're going to get captured, I'm going to redeem you. Votvinach lili into. Right? And I'm going to bring you back to me as a wife. Uve kohenet, or to do with what happens now, she's a kohenet. I'm going to give you back to your country. Remember that if a kohenet is violated, that's the difference between a kohenet and Israelite. If a woman that she's married to a kohen, she's violated, even though it was against her will, she can never get married to her husband again. That's it. It's a done game with a kohenet. So therefore, he did not write down that if she was going to be captured, he would have to return her to her country because basically he cannot stay living with her. Chayav, he's still obligated. Why? Shul Tanai Betin. It's going to be Tanai Betin. Next one, Nishbet. Chayav livtota. If she gets captured, he's obligated to redeem her. And if he said, remember, what happens? The guy says, you know what? Here, they're asking for $1 million. How much is a ketubah? Yeah, what is it? 18, 26, 52, whatever it is. So here, take the 52, take the get and the ketubah, take it together. Yeah, hasta la vista. Yeah, look it out for yourself. Eno Rashai, he's not allowed to. He's not allowed to. You heard? Not allowed to. So he said, lakta, if she became sick, he's obligated to cure her. Here, though, if he says that here's the get in the ketubah and that she should cure herself, he is able to do that. Right? Why? Because a person is not obligated anymore to give parnasa to grushato. So because of that, right, he's giving the get, right? Now he's getting divorced. That's it. To do with the case of the previous one, which is basically that she was captured, right? She has to be in a stage that she's not captured. That means he's obligated to redeem her, and now he could give her the ketubah and the get or whatever it is that he wants to give her. But beforehand, no, because she's still captured. But to do with the lakta, which means that she becomes sick, right now he can divorce her whenever he wants. Right? It's not like there's something that's stopping him. So he gets divorced to her, he gives her, and then he says, okay, so she should cure himself, and that's it. So let's see the Gemara. Okay, says the Gemara, Mani. Who is the Tana that taught the Reish of the Mishnah that says that a woman is going to take it even if he did not write a ketubah at whatsoever? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Meir. So our Mishnah, which actually makes sense, the Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. So our Mishnah is like Rabbi Meir. He says, it says according to Shtat Rabbi Meir, if a person comes and he has relations with his wife, and he's going to give her less than 200 zuz for a betula, or less than 100 zuz for an almanah, it's considered bilat znut. It's considered that he had relations, right, promiscuity, which means that he's not considered that he actually got married to her. It's that he was fooling around. Why? And the Rabbi Yehuda, but if it's going to be according to Shtat Rabbi Yehuda, Ha'amar, he says, Ratzak kotev lebetula shtar shel 200, vehi kotevet kabati mincha mana, ulalmana mana, vehi kotevet kabati mincha 50 zuz. Which means, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you could get a discount. What does that mean? You have a woman that she can't get married. Now the husband comes and he says, remember that men could get married to more than one woman, so this could happen very often, right? So what happens? He comes and he says, listen, right, Fatima, you want to get married? No problem. You know how it is, yeah? Aisha, yeah, what do you want? Freha, yeah? So he comes and he says, you know how to do it? Very, very simple, right? He comes and he says, right, as follows. I'm going to give you the ketubah. The ketubah obligation is 200 zuz. But you're already going to give me a receipt for 100 zuz. Or she was supposed to get 100 zuz, and she's giving a receipt of 50 zuz. What does that mean? Kilu, that she already received it. So according to Shtat Rabbi Yehuda, that's good. Even though she didn't receive a penny. She's giving him like a receipt so that he's getting like a discount. Right? What does that mean? Even though he's obligated to give 200 zuz. Right? Yeah, but now she's writing him back that she already got 100. So for if it is whenever he does get divorced from her, or whenever if he dies, so now she only gets 100 zuz, not 200 zuz, because there's already a receipt. So says the Gemara, but 1 second. If you're going to tell me then that this Mishnah is going in accordance to Rabbi Meir, because if it was going to according to Rabbi Yehuda says that you could do less because she could just write a receipt. Let's see the Seifa. Katavla sadeh shaveh mana, right? Tachat 200 zuz. What is the Seifa? The Seifa was, what happens right now if you came and she wrote a document, that in the document, let's see the Seifa. The Seifa says that
excuse me,
right now,
excuse me.
Right now. So says the Gemara, what about the Seifa? The Seifa says that if he wrote to her a field which was worth 100 zuz instead of 200 zuz, he didn't write down all the nechasim deeply achrayim, that everything is going to be subjugated to the ketubah. Chayav, he's still going to be chayav. Shu t'nai betin, because it's going to be t'nai betin. Natan Rabbi Yehuda, so that goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Te'amar Baz, he says achrayut is ta'ut sofer, which means that even if he did not write the word achrayut, we're just going to say it was a ta'ut sofer, meaning the sofer he forgot to write it in. For sure, it has to be written achrayut. But if it was not written in it, it was a mistake. Mistake of who? The sofer. The sofer comes, he writes ketubot. He made a mistake. The either b'mid, but if you're going to tell me it's b'mid, ha'amar achrayut lav ta'ut sofer. He says achrayut is not going to be ta'ut sofer, because we're not going to say that it was a mistake, but rather we're going to say that he did it purposely. The Tanam, because we learned in the Mishnah, matzah shtarei chov, if a person came and he found the shtar chov. The shtar chov is a debt document. Im nun aleph amubes 51b. Im yesh ben achrayut nechasim, if it's got achrayut nechasim, lo yachzir, a person should not return it. Shebetin nifraim mehem, because betin are going to come and they're going to pay back from them. Em b'hem achrayut nechasim, it does not have achrayut nechasim. Yachzir, then you could give it back to him. Why? Shebetin nifraim mehem, because betin are not going to come, they're not going to get paid back from him. Which means like this: right now you found a document. The document said that David Perez owes me $1 million. Yeah, $1 million, no problem. Now what happens is you find this document. Now the question is, can you give it back to me or not? Because if you give it back to me, maybe what I'm going to do is I'm going to come and I'm going to collect again. I'm going to come and I'm going to collect from everything. And even if it doesn't have I'm going to come and I'm going to start collecting. So because of that, the whole question is, can you give it back or not? So here it says, if it's got achrayut nechasim, which means that if it has a lien on other properties, so therefore it says you should not give it back to the malum. Why? Because betin nifraim min al-lekuchot, and then we're going to come and we're going to say that there was going to be an eskim between them. You know what we did, right? What I did is that I went with David and we made a beautiful. We were con artists. Mamash, we made an incredible thing. We had a document that's written that he owes me $1 million. Right? In between, he already just sold a whole bunch of properties. I come now, Dr. John Paul just bought from him, right? Mr. Right? Mr. Steele comes, he also bought from him, right? And then you have also, right, Yitzchak, comes and he buys from him. So now what happens? All of a sudden, right, I come with the document and I go to doctor, give it back to me. What are you talking about? Give it back to me. Yeah, look, he owes me $1 million. All the properties are subjugated to me. So if so you just bought it, sorry, give it back to me, go collect from him. He's going to tell you he doesn't have any money. I go, Mr. Give it back, I take everything. Now, behind the back, I already slip him the 50%. Yeah, behind the back. But now when you guys come to him, he comes, bankruptcy. I have nothing. What do you want? Oh, no. Wallo. So therefore, says the Gemara, yesh be'em achrayut nechasim, if they have achrayut nechasim, lo yachzir. Don't give it back to the malveh. Why don't you give it back to the lender? Why? Shebetin nifraim, because betin will come and they're going to take it away from them. But if it does not have achrayut nechasim, yachzir, you should give it back. Why? Shebetin nifraim, right? These are the words of Rabbi. Chachamim say lo yachzir. You never give it back. Why? Betin will always collect from it. So you see from here that according to Rabbi Meir, only if it's written, then yes. If it's not written, you can't collect. According to the Chachamim, you always will collect. So what? Reisha is Rabbi Meir and Seifa is Rabbi Yehuda? Does that make sense? Because what are we saying now? We're trying to say that if it was written, right, the achrayut nechasim, right, according to Rabbi Meir, right, there's a difference if it's written achrayut nechasim or not. But according to Chachamim, there's no difference. So now the Seifa of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Meir. Because according to Rabbi Meir, if it's not written achrayut nechasim, it's not written. Right? And that's it. But according to the rabbis, I don't care if it's written or not. It's always like it's written. So means what? The Seifa is going to be like Rabbi Yehuda, and the Reisha is going to be like Rabbi Meir. It doesn't make sense. Now, if you're going to tell me Hula Rabbi Meir, the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. There's a difference between Rabbi Meir, between a ketubah and a shtar. Remember what happened. We're talking about the ketubot. If a ketubah was not written, right, achrayut nechasim, so the first shita thought that there was a difference between ta'ut sofer and not ta'ut sofer. Rabbi Meir does not hold a ta'ut sofer, but that's only by a document. It's not by a ketubah. So therefore, maybe Rabbi Meir also agrees that even if it's not written achrayut in a ketubah, it's not like a regular shtar. You're right. In a regular shtar, if it's written achrayut, written achrayut. Not written achrayut, not written achrayut. But to do with the ketubah, I don't care whether it's written achrayut or not. It's always considered that there's achrayut. Well, are you going to tell me there's a difference according to Rabbi Meir? Tanya, we learned in the right. There's going to be 5 types of debts which you could collect from nechasim benechorim. Nechorim means nechasim v'nechorim. Ve'elu, and these are the 5 that you could actually come and you could collect. Perot. Yeah, imagine right now I come and I sell a field which is not mine. Right? So the purchaser, he comes and he plants, right? And it sprouts forth and it makes fruits. Now comes the guy and he comes and he says, give me back my field. Yeah, and he takes it back now with a perot. So now what happens? The halacha is that the actual karka, right, he could actually take from nechasim shubadim, right? But the perot, he cannot take only from nechasim benechorim, right, which is in the hands of the seller by itself and not from the which you already bought. So therefore, perot, that's what we're saying. This is one of the things. Perot can only be collected from mechurarim, benechorim, not from other properties. Right? One more time. A guy came and he bought a property, right? But the problem is that he bought it from the wrong owner. Meaning the guy was a thief. He came, he sold you a property. It wasn't his. Yeah? You come, you start working the land and everything. Now all of a sudden the other guy comes and he takes back his property. Now you lost out not only on your principal, what you invested to buy the property, you also have perot here, fruits. So he says the principal you could take from the nechasim, right? The meshubadim and all the things. But the fruits you could only collect from nechasim benechorim. Okay, which are properties which are benechorim, which are not subjugated. Okay. Number 2, shevach perot. Somebody sold a field that was not his, and he appreciated the value of the field. So, for example, he came, he fertilized it, he plowed it, and all of a sudden they come and they take it away from him. The same thing. The gufa karka, the actual, the body of the field, he could come and take from the nechasim shubadim. But the appreciation value that he actually came in and, the renovations and all these things that you come and you put, right, you invest, that has to come from nechorim. Number 3, mekabel alav lazun ben ishto or bat ishto. Right? What happens right now? A person gets married, and the woman that he's getting married to, she already has a previous boy or girl, or boys or girls, whichever one that you want. Right? Now he accepted upon himself to for alimony to support them. He's getting married to the woman, so now he has to support the children. So in such a case, also that comes from bnei chorim. Number 4, get chov, right, or shtar chov shem bo achrayut. Right. Also, if there's no achrayut, so it cannot get from nechasim shubadim, it can only take from nechasim benechorim. Right. Number 5, uktubat isha shem achrayut. Also, uktubat isha that does not have achrayut. So says the Gemara. Now, 1 second. We just said uktubat isha that does not have achrayut. We said before that there's no difference between achrayut or not. It always has achrayut. Correct. That's what we wanted to say. That means if you're going to tell me it's a taut sofer, there's nothing what to talk about. But even if it's not a taut sofer and it's a b'min, but we wanted to start off by saying that there's no difference between Rabbi Meir, meaning that by ketubah, even Rabbi Meir agrees that there's always going to be achrayut. So it says, man shamat le'dam al achrayut taut sofer. Who's the only one that holds that achrayut is not considered a taut sofer? Rabbi Meir. Uktanim ktubat isha, and this is ktubat isha. So you see from here that what? That in such a case, that there is a difference between Rabbi Meir, which means Rabbi Meir, even by a ketubah, makes a difference between achrayut or not achrayut. So answers the Gemara, no. If you want, you could say our entire Mishnah is Rabbi Meir, or if you want, you could say our entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Now let's try to explain. Let's start with Rabbi Yehuda. So he says, if you want, you could say the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Yehuda. Hatam, over there, right? Katvale, she actually wrote to him, Kabalti. Remember, Rabbi Meir was the one that says that you have to give 200 or 100. And if it's not, let's do. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you could give her 200, but then she comes and she writes you a receipt. I already received 100. Right? That was Shitat Rabbi Yehuda. So he comes and he says, there the case was that she wrote it. So therefore, since she actually came and she wrote that Kilu itkabalti mincha, so it comes out that she was already mochelet, she was already forgiving on part of the ketubah. Okay? Hacha, but in our case, lo katvale kabalti, she didn't write it. So she didn't write it mefura. So Rabbi Yehuda is going to be modeh that she gets the 200 or the 100, the full amount of the ketubah. Now, if you're going to tell me, and therefore it comes out that also the Reisha of the Mishnah is also going to be good according to Rabbi Yehuda. Because when the Reisha of the Mishnah said that even if you didn't write anything, you still have to give 200 or 100, she didn't write down in Kabbalti. She didn't write down in Kabbalti. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees with that. Okay, and in the Sefer I was talking about that she did. So he says, or if you want, you could answer Rabbi Meir, the entire Mishnah is Rabbi Meir. Right now, again, one more time. According to Rabbi Meir, the Reisha for sure is Rabbi Meir, because he says you have to give her 200 or 100. But what about the Chiyuv Nechasim, the Chayut? So he says, "My chayav b'ktanim Mishnah." What does it mean then when it says chayav? Right? That means even though he didn't write down in the ketubah only a sadeh, which is a field which is 100 zuz. So he says, but it's going to be mina mechuredim, right? But she's not going to. That's what he says. She is going to be able to collect it, but only from the mechuredim. And therefore, we're going to say that the fact that it's not written about the achrayut, it just means that she could only take it from the mechuredim and not from the nechasim meshubadim. Okay, and therefore the entire Mishnah could also be like Rabbi. Next, 2 dots. In lo katavla, if he did not write down, right, that if she's going to get captured, he's going to come and he's going to redeem her. Amar Rav, what the Shmuel comes and says, Eshet Yisrael shenensa suda lebala. Do you know that an Eshet Yisrael that gets violated, a wife of Yisrael that gets violated, she's prohibited to her husband? Why? We're going to suspect that at the beginning, she was violated. But at the end, she was enjoying herself. She wanted it. Yeah? So says the Gemara, and therefore, since at the end she wants it, so it's considered that she did it b'ratzon. She did it b'ratzon. So says the Gemara, 8 Rav lavo the Shmuel. Rav comes and he asks the Shmuel, he says, 1 second, how could you come and tell me that? Because it's written with Furash in the Mishnah that he did not write down, if you're going to get captured, I'm going to redeem you, and then I'm going to take you back as a wife. If you say the words, I'm taking you back as a wife, it's not like what you just said, that an Eshet Yisrael shenensa, she's asura lebala, because he's saying, I'm going to take you back as a wife. So ishtik, he kept quiet. Because it's a bomb question, right? It's an incredible question. So Kadi Rav Shmuel. So Rav went and he called him the father of Shmuel. Sarim atzru b'milim v'chaf yasimu lefiem. That sometimes you have a case that the sarim, they weren't able to speak words, and even their hands they put them on their mouths, right? So says Gemara, why? What does that mean? And he's obviously he could have said something, but he didn't answer, right? That's what he says, that he was able to answer something, but he didn't answer. What could he answer? So he says b'shvuya kilim. Says no. By a shvuya, they were actually more mekel than by Eshet Yisrael shenensa, right? So he comes and he says, what does that mean? So by a shvuya, we didn't want to come and suspect that maybe at the beginning it was done b'ratzon and at the end not, because we didn't see her bichlal that she had relations. But if what the Shmuel is talking about that we did see her have relations, which is really this. What's the case of captivity? She was taken into captivity. Do we know that for sure he violated her? We don't know. So we're already going to say maybe he did. Okay, chazak u'ruch. So he did, right? But it's a suspicion. We don't know. So now in such a case, the fact that we don't know, so we're going to be lenient that even if he did, it was not chilato which means it was not that at the beginning it was a violation and then at the end she was enjoying herself, right? But the case of Avod, the Shmuel was talking about that there was no shvuya. A man came and he violated a woman. We know that she was violated. So now it comes Avod, the Shmuel, and says, we're going to suspect that even though at the beginning it was a violation, she wanted it at the end. She was enjoying herself. So she wanted it. So it says the Gemara, no, right? Ulavud Shmuel, honest. So then what's the case of honest that the Torah permits? At the end of the day, the Torah does say that there's honest. So what's the case of honest then according to Avod Shmuel? It says, no. You know what happened? There are witnesses that they're saying that from the beginning until the end she was screaming. Screaming. Yeah, I apologize, I wasn't screaming. Yeah, she was screaming. She was, she, right? Or sometimes, they gag them or whatever, like that. But basically she didn't want from the beginning to the end. So since she didn't want from the beginning until the end, so that's why he comes and he says, that is the honest that the Torah comes and he says, this argues about Rabbi. Rabbi comes and he says, even though the beginning was honest and at the end was biratzon, even if she says, leave him alone. Imagine right now you have a few guys, they're going to come and they're going to grab him, and they're going to take him out. And she says, leave him alone. Because even if she's not going, she would even pay him to come on to her now. Muteret, she's going to be permitted to her husband. Why? My tama yetzer al basha. Because the yetzer hara went on top of her. Meaning there's a yetzer hara that comes into her. Right? Why does the yetzer hara come into her now? Because basically what happened is that even though the ratzon was not, the nature was, right? It says over here, it's not going to take it out of honest, but he says that the nature of the woman is that she's going to be nimshechet achar bo'ala, but it comes out that she was anusan, the gufa ratzon that she wanted at the end. So therefore, basically what's coming is that she's thinking to herself, when would she be able to be with another man? Never. So all of a sudden, if he's already, so she never wanted it at the beginning. It was honest, she was screaming. But then already, when he's already there, so then, okay, so she's going to enjoy herself. But that's the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara that is already there, right? So says the Gemara.
Because at the end,
Tanya Kavated Rava, we have a brighta in accordance to Rava, right? That says the same thing. Vihilo needs pasa. It says that she wasn't violated. Asura lebala. So then she's going to be prohibited to her husband, which means if a woman committed infidelity and she wasn't grabbed, so therefore she's going to be prohibited to her husband. Hani pasa, but if she was grabbed, muteret, she's going to be prohibited to the husband. And then you have another woman that she wasn't grabbed, muteret, and she's still going to be permitted. What is this case? If at the beginning she was like violated, but at the end she doesn't. Meaning at the beginning they tied her up, but then afterwards they released, and she's still staying there, and she's enjoying herself. Still considered tchilato b'subeonas usva b'ratzon. Taina idach, we learned another brayta. Viluni pasa asurat. She wasn't grabbed, she's going to be permitted. Hani pasa, but if she was grabbed, she's going to be permitted. Even though she was grabbed, she's still going to be prohibited. Who is that? Eshet Kohen. Sorry, thank you. Which means that an Eshet Kohen, even though she was going to be grabbed, she's still going to be prohibited. So Amar Rav Yehuda Mishmuel, Mishum Rabbi Shmuel, says Rav Yehuda Mishmuel, name Rabbi Shmuel, V'hiloni pasa. The Torah says that she wasn't grabbed, which means she wasn't violated, she's going to be prohibited. But if she was grabbed, she's going to be permitted. Yeshach, there's going to be another woman that even she wasn't grabbed, she's going to be permitted. What is this case? Shekidusha kidushet ta'ut. If it was a mistake in the kiddushin in itself. Because even if her son is on her shoulders, she could do mi'un, okay, which means that here she could do she could just misarev, and therefore she goes out even without a get, because since the tanai was not fulfilled, so therefore bichlal, the entire thing was not considered a marriage. Okay, so mamash, you annul the entire marriage. So Amar Rav Yehuda says, Hane nashe de ganvu ganave sharian leguvraim. This is the case what you were just saying, right? These women, which they are married to the listim, right? That means basically you have married women that they come, the listim come, they steal them, right? And what happens? Sharian leguvraim, they're going to be permitted. Why? Because it's only going to be considered honest. He says, well, what are you talking about? Right? We come and we see that these women, even when they're coming, they're giving them bread, they're giving them thing. So it looks like that they want to be there. He says, no, they're doing it because of fear. Meaning they're doing it only because of fear, not because they want to. So ask the Gemara, he says, what are you talking about? He says, right, when these these women are actually helping in the war. Meaning when these guys have to go out to war, these women are actually helping. He says, the same thing, right? Because of fear. So he says, Vadai, right? So he says, Vadai shavkinu ve'aza minafshai hu asiran. He says, if they let them go back to their husbands, and now they go back to the thieves, now they're prohibited. Which means if they are set free, and they're told, go, and now they say, no, I'm happy here. Now they become prohibited to their husbands. Right? But if they go back, they go back. So do you know that any type of shuyim of the kings, right? That means the king will come and he'll take these women to become pilachim, the concubines. They are like shuyin as well. Right? Which means that they're permitted to their husbands. But but the ones of the thieves are not like shuyot. They're permitted to their husbands. Why? Because it's more of a chazakah that they're doing it beratzon. Okay, that's what it says. Tanya, we learned in a braita ipcha, it's the exact opposite. Okay, so he comes and he says, right, malchut alokashe. Don't bring me a question from one malchut to another malchut. Ham malchut achashverosh, v'ham malchut ben netzer. What does that mean? In the malchut of Achashverosh, which was a very big kingdom, so a woman knew that the king was not going to get married to her, and therefore she wasn't going to become queen. So therefore, it's only mamash, it's only honest. Here, the second one, where it says that she's prohibited to her husband, is the malchut ben netzer, which is not a malchut chashuvah. So therefore, we're going to say that maybe Be'emet, she wanted to go with him in order that Be'emet she would get married to him. By Achashverosh, they knew that there's only going to be one queen, and everybody else was just concubines, or just for him to have fun. You understand? So therefore, what happened was, in such a scenario, right, it was good. But here it's different. Listot, it's also not a contradiction between listot and listot. Why? Habbe ben netzer. This is the case of ben netzer, which means that we're going to say that maybe she's going to get married, or maybe she's going to do beratzon in order to become queen, right? We're talking about stam, right? So a person like this is very difficult, right, to be married to them. So therefore, because of that, she's not doing a beratzon. So therefore, she's still permitted to her husband. But if it's going to become somebody that she could become queen, even if it's going to become queen of a small little tiny country or something, but she still prefers to be the queen. So says the Gemara, ubenetzer hatam kari lemelech ve'achar. See 1 second. In both cases, did you realize Ben Netzer was one place he was called a king, because we said Malchut HaChashrosh, Malchut Ben Netzer, and then we talk about Listim Ben Netzer, Listim de Alma. So 1 second, is Ben Netzer a Listim or is a Malchut? The side, right? And so the Gemara, yes, for a Chashverosh, he's considered Listim, but to do with Listim de Alma, he's considered a Melech, which means he's in the middle. To do with Malchut HaChashverosh was the king over the entire, like the entire world, basically. So therefore, Ben Netzer, Biachas, in comparison to Chashverosh, was like a listim, he was like nothing. But the second case, right, at the end of the day, Ben Netzer was like a king. It wasn't just some thieves that are running around, doing things. Okay, fine. 2 dots. Kohenet. We're talking about now the Kohenet. So says the Gemara, it says by a Kohenet that he has to take her back to her country. So Abaye says, if an almana gets married to a Kohen Gadol and then she gets captured, the Kohen Gadol still is obligated to come and to redeem her. Shani Koreba, as I call her a Kohenet, right? She has to go back to her city, which means that even though an almana is not allowed to get married to the Kohen Gadol, obviously, but here he still actually has to come, right, and is obligated to redeem her. Okay, and mamzer lentina Israel. The same lacha would apply to a mamzer lentina to Israel, right? Sorry, here, but to do with mamzer lentina Israel, eno chayav levitulah. He's not obligated to get married to redeem her. She'ena nikoreba, but I cannot go read on it. Which means like this: by the almana to the Kohen Gadol, at the end of the day, even by a regular Kohen, he had to give her back to her country. So it's the same thing here. The almana, he's taking her back to her country. So it's still the same words. So therefore, even though the marriage was not a good marriage, he's still obligated to come and to redeem her. But by Mamzer Nitila Israel, what was written? That you were going to redeem her and take her back as a wife. You could not take her back as a wife. So the fact that you could not take her back as a wife, so therefore it's not a good marriage. And therefore, since it's not a good marriage, he's not obligated to come and to give her back.